So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got the awesome sponsors of Be More Super, Propstore, and the wonderful Chuck Costas to chat about the latest auction. Chuck, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Appreciate it. And glad to be here to talk about another big Propstore auction.
What an auction. Honestly, each year my jaw drops. It really does. So this is the Entertainment Memorabilia live auction from the 28th to the 30th of June in the lovely Los Angeles, which I'm so excited. I mean, how many lots have you got in this year's auction?
It's over 1,450. I know we keep telling ourselves we're going to make it, a little bit less, and we actually did. We had over 1,800 in the last Los Angeles auction. So it'll be a very full-packed 3 days of auction material. But we always like to give a nice variety of things for people participating, and hopefully you find, if you take a look at the catalog, you'll find something that you like from one of your favorite titles.
I mean, I was going to ask, how does this year's auction compare to last year's?
From a number, we had more lots last year, but from a dollar perspective, I think we actually have maybe a little bit more. Last year, for those that were there or those that didn't know, we sold the X-Wing fighter, the Screen Match X-Wing fighter. It was a Pyro model. That went for $2.375 million. So that was the highest price item that Propstore has ever sold. We've got some. We'll talk a little bit about some of the big hitters that we have in this auction, but it's very hard to always top that from an individual item. But I think when you look at the variety of different things that we have in the auction, we've got a pretty nice selection, and a lot of it very fresh to the market, which I think people always like to see as well.
Okay, so let's start talking about a few of the pieces because I'm so excited. In front of you, you've got a hammer, which looks right absolutely incredible. If you could talk us through a bit about it and what it's from.
Sure. So this is the first hammer that we've seen from the latest Thor movie, which is Thor: Love and Thunder. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth was the one that was holding Mjolnir, which is the name of the hammer, for the first part. Or the first few movies, but this one was actually the one that was used by Natalie Portman. And what you'll notice that those that have been following Thor hammers, there was sort of a big change in the design of Mjolnir from Thor 1 to Thor 2, and they added a lot of the detail, and a lot of the handle was redesigned for Thor 2. But when we get to this one, there's a few things that are new and different. First, for Natalie Portman, they actually shrink the handle down a little bit so that it wouldn't look quite as long as the original and look more proportion to her body. But then, obviously, Mjolnir gets destroyed by Hela, I believe, in one of the previous episodes of the Thor's adventures. But then in this movie, it is pieced back together, and Natalie Portman is now carrying it versus Thor himself, who's carrying Stormbreaker.
And what is it estimated at? Because that is just an incredible piece.
Yeah, I think I'd have to check the catalog myself as far as that goes. I think it's either $60,000 to $120,000.
I mean,
I have to double check the catalog myself.
I know it's lot 282. So if there's any Thor fans, Marvel fans, that would look absolutely amazing in someone's man cave on a shelf, lit up. It's just incredible.
It is beautiful, and what you can't, if you look at the pictures and you go to propstore.com and take a close at the up close pictures there's a lot of detail that they did. It looks like they airbrushed the cracks a little bit with a little bit of yellow in it, which you probably can't see from this distance, but it adds to the fact that this is the cracked version of it. The other thing to note is this, though we sold stunt versions of it, this is actually you can kind of hear it's hollow inside, which makes it very light for the actor to carry. And this one weighs probably about a pound, where if you had a hero Thor hammer from an earlier movie, it might be 5 pounds or so. But this doesn't have the soft head. We sold last year a Thor hammer from the first Thor movie, and that had a soft head to it. This one actually has a hard, it looks like a 3D printed head to this, but also the handle itself too is a little bit lighter. So easy to carry. I wouldn't try to put a nail into the wall with this one, but it's a beautiful hammer.
And the estimate on that on the website is 60 to 120. So right. I am sure there's going to be a bidding war for sure for the hammer. And I want to do chat about a piece that obviously we can't have there because of the sheer size. So I'm going to bring up a picture just on screen, and I'm going to show some other pictures as well. It's of course the bat pod, which would take up your table I mean, how amazing
More
is
so than
this?
that, yes, right.
How amazing is it to see in person? Because it just looks so impressive on the pictures.
It is. I think the first thing that people notice when they see it is first they didn't know it was an actual real vehicle. You look at these movies and you think that they're just kind of shells. It's a fully working vehicle that they engineered specifically for the Batman movies, and a stunt actor actually had to drive this. And so it does work. The first thing that I noticed is the tire size. The tire size on the front and the back are huge. I think they're actually, I believe somebody said they're Derby tires that have been shaved down. They're Hoosier tires, but they're just huge. But that's because they wanted to emulate the Tumbler design, which this comes out of in the movies.
Mm.
But just an amazing piece of practical but futuristic slash or fantasy. It's an amazing sort of amalgamation of real world and fantasy world all in one big piece.
I mean, do you know if the bike is actually functional? Does it actually go?
It was at one point, and I believe there were at least 4 of these that were made. And there's a lot of videos if you actually go search out there on sort of the making of the film and how they made these vehicles and used these vehicles. But yes, it did. They did decommission it. We actually Propstore sold the same vehicle, I think it was 5 to 6 years ago, and it came directly at that time from Warner Brothers. So this was released by Warner Brothers. It's the only one that's been released to the public. It's the only one that you can own. But at the time, they actually decommissioned it. It has like a Honda motor inside. Not to say that you should put everything back in working order, because I'm sure it's not street legal, and I'm sure that's part of the reason that it was decommissioned from that perspective. But yes, it was a working vehicle at one point in time, and you can actually see that with the wear and tear that are on the tires as well.
I mean, I'd love to speak to the gentleman that actually rode the bike. It was a stuntman called Jean-Pierre Goy. And he actually rode the bike as the stunt double, because looking at it, it can't be great at hand handling, I've got to say. But again, looking forward to seeing that going under the hammer for all the Batman fans out there, because again, it's a very rare piece, as you just mentioned. And then we go on to a bit of Guardians of the Galaxy, which everyone's loving right now. If you could tell us a bit about that piece, that awesome piece in front of you.
Sure. So this is from the first movie. So when we first meet Starlord on the planet Morag, we see, we actually don't see his face. You see him behind one of these masks. This is a hero version of the mask, and it's marked inside Hero 3. What's awesome is obviously that because it's a hero version of it, it's got fully working lights, not only from the front, but you also see on the side that they've added the red LEDs in there as well. It works with a simple battery that goes in there. The first thing you're asking, what the first thing people say is, "Wow, Chris Pratt has a big head," and he does have, compared to maybe some other actors, it was a little bit of a larger build for it, but nicely padded on the inside as you would have for comfort of anybody wearing this, and separates with magnets, so it's a very cool design from that perspective.
I mean, I've got to say, another cool piece to get our hands on, and I'm sure again it's going to be a bidding war. And I've got to say, the estimate 100 to 200,000. I mean, again, this is a key piece from the movie that started it all for the Guardians. So that is lot 280. For all the Marvel fans out there. And then we go on.
And if you think about the significance of this piece, I think 1 second, Brian, is that, it's really kicked off the humor side of Marvel. I think after the success of this movie, which was a bunch of misfits that frankly were C-level characters in the Marvel universe, it really worked. And I think we saw a tonal change in the rest of the Marvel movie. So it is significant in that regards as well.
Yeah, and it's just a great piece. I don't know if I would put it on my head, but I'll be worried about that.
I'm not going to do it.
No. And then we move on to really something everyone's talking about at the moment, which is Superman Lives, because Kevin Smith obviously created the script, and he's doing a live reading very, very soon at his own cinema. If you could walk us through the emblems that you've got there from the actual
sure.
Well, the movie that was going to be
get
made.
my glasses out. And Brian, you can give a summary too for those that don't know Superman Lives. It was the Superman movie that was never originally made. It starred Nicolas Cage, and they spent a lot of time. I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of Jack Johnson's sort of sketches that he had done for not storyboarding, but for sort of concept designs around that. Very organic in nature as far as the atmosphere that they were setting Superman in. But the emblems I've always been fascinated with as well, because you've seen these pictures of them on set, and they have all these different emblems, and they were really trying different things out. And they tried different materials. So, for instance, on this one, this is a sort of rubbery sort of material, and you can see on the back, part of what they were trying to do was have his pecs represented in the chest emblem here. So they had cut it in the middle of this to give a little bit of a divot in the center of the design here. And so this one, for instance, has a little bit of a black outline. This version here, without the black, I think they were trying to figure out based on tests what works best. This one says YS1. So playing around with different color schemes on it. But then these are pretty cool, which is the sort of metallic. And when they did sort of the death of Superman in comic books, these look more like what you would have seen with, like a steel or something like that. So it's interesting that these are actually hard. And it says here, this one's extra brushed aluminum, black on black, number 242. So they have, I think what's very cool is that you see what they were playing with and the materials that they were using and the colors. Similarly, put that up here. And you got this one, which is more of a gray tone than the other one, which is more of a silver. So this is gunmetal, which is number 115 on it. Again, sort of black on black is what they say here too. So a whole great variety of different things that they were playing with. And probably one of the coolest things from this movie is just seeing the different iterations they were playing out with. And I think in some ways I'm very unhappy that I never got to see them in a movie.
Mm. Well, there are rumors that maybe Nicolas Cage might be appearing in a film of The Flash. There's rumors there. I've seen the movie.
There's rumors.
I've had an early screening. It may or may not appear. Obviously, I'm not going to divulge. You'd have to all go and see The Flash to see for yourself.
I believe it opens on the 16th, right? Yeah.
The 16th, yeah. And it's an awesome film. Absolutely amazing. I walked out with a big smile on my face. But yeah, so I mean, iconic pieces again, because the amount of press that Superman Lives got, that there was a Superman movie that was never made, and it's a pity that it didn't get made because of obviously Kevin Smith explaining what the movie was going to be about. So these key pieces again be great in any Superman fans collection, because Nicolas Cage, love him or hate him, the costume looked amazing, and this film looked like it was going to be amazing. And then moving on to Wonder Woman, one of my favorites.
Yes.
If you could explain a bit about the sword and the lasso as truth.
Sure. So folks out there know that Wonder Woman debuted in the new DC universe in Batman versus Superman. And the sword was actually designed for Zack Snyder's movie. What was interesting on that is a lot of detail on it. I think you've got a bluish tint on the hilt here. And then you've got runes that are inscribed here, which is supposed to be an older language. And it translates to life is killing all the time. So the goddess kills herself in the sacrifice of her own animal. So it's a very prophetic thing that's done in there, but they put the time and effort into doing that, similar to other very famous swords. What I noticed, this is actually from Justice League, and the harness that you see here is unique to Justice League. She's not wearing this harness in the original appearance in Batman versus Superman, and you've obviously got the lasso of truth here as well. But the sword was originally designed with a slightly larger handle, is something I noticed when I compared it to a Batman versus Superman version. It was sort of a double-handed sword, and now it was slimmed down to a single-handed sword. I guess it looked better in proportion to her. But it's not metal. It's a harder sort of plastic substance on there that's fully painted. But a beautiful thing, and it has a great weight to it that feels like a real sword.
Yeah, because I was going to ask if this was a sword that would have been used during, but would you say it's more to be in that harness throughout filming, or do you think that she would have it out?
Yeah, I think the ones I've seen from Batman Superman that were in the harness, they actually had a hole that was drilled sort of in the center here to keep it in place, because I'm sure that because it's a heavier sword, that it's a little bit of a liability to have this come loose. But this version looks like one that would have been drawn out here, and it does have, if you look very closely, it's got nicks as if it was used in battle many a times, but that's built into the mold of the sword itself. Not too sharp, so you don't have to necessarily worry about it. But as I say, it's got a great weight to it. It feels like a great, a nice sword, and just the detail that you have with all the inscriptions and the insignia and other things that are on here are just beautiful.
Excellent. And then we're going to save the best till last. Recently, Carrie Fisher got finally a star on the Walk of Fame, which I've got to say was well deserved, and it took too long for her to get it. But obviously, Star Wars is something that's in our DNA, I've got to say. And you've got an absolute key piece. If you want to talk us through that awesome dress that's behind you.
Yes. So you mentioned the fact that she got a Hollywood Walk of Fame star. In that ceremony, they actually showed a picture of her in this particular dress. So most people remember Princess Leia was wearing, I guess, more of almost like a judo outfit, or something that was a little bit more sort of hid her figure. And I think this dress was significant in the movie in that there was a big reveal at the end in that they wanted to show her off as a princess, and this was intended to sort of be her princess dress. And when artists such as the Hildebrandt brothers, who were called in to do the Star Wars poster, they chose to use this dress as the model versus the costume that she's in for the majority of the movie there. As far as we know, it is the only known example of a Princess Leia dress or costume that still exists from the very first Star Wars movie. After production, as there are stories about many of these, it was kind of balled up upstairs. It was used for a fancy dress party. I know it sounds sacrilegious, but back in the day, it was a beautiful costume to wear. So why not? But then it was stored for a number of years and just sort of out of sight, out of mind. Was rediscovered. It did have a little bit of damage to it, probably from bugware and just use. So it has been professionally restored to museum grade quality. It's been put on a custom mannequin that is also museum grade to really bring out the beauty of the piece. And I just, as I sit here next to it, you just kind of gawk a bit, and it does truly belong in a museum. And I hope the person who has this, displays it proudly and/or lends it to a museum in the future. But what's also amazing is the belt. The belt is leather that has been painted silver with aluminum bits that have been added to the belt itself. It was able to be screen matched, that, given the end of the production and given that this was a relatively quick scene, very likely that this was the only dress that was made for the movie. Therefore, this should be the only belt that was there. And you can actually look at the creases in the leather of the belt, compare that to photos at the time, because she did some photo shoots in this dress as well as on screen, and you can match the creases in that leather to this belt to know that this is the one and only that she was wearing in the movie.
I mean, that is just an incredible piece. It really, really is. And for any Star Wars collector out there, this is probably one of the ones that you want to go after. So I cannot, again, wait. I mean, the one thing I'd love to do at home is watch this auction live. And it's just amazing to watch, honestly, to me. Forget movies, this auction. I've got to ask as well, I mean, How many auctioneers do you have throughout the process of these days? Because they work so hard at that pedestal.
They do. We have two, so they rotate between each other. We actually they don't get a break. We don't, for the people out there that are following along, we want to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. So they rotate about every 50 to 100 lots and go through it. Unfortunately, for those folks in the UK, this is towards the end of the day in LA time, which is the S's. So it'll be a little late or early in the morning for you if you actually want to watch this live. But it will be worth it. I mean, I think the people that watched the X-Wing last year, that was super exciting. I got to be the phone bidder for, unfortunately, the underbidder. But it was just almost history in the making as that was unfolding. And similar to that, I mean, when you think about iconic Star Wars pieces, you think of the main characters. Very few, costumes like this have ever appeared on the open market. And Princess Leia, and I think everybody would agree, especially with the Hollywood Walk of Fame star now, that she is one of the classics. And this dress itself should be up there with and considered as a classic dress, similar to the Marilyn Monroe dress or other dresses out there. So, I gawk a little bit of sort of being next to it, just because it is a piece of history that literally is right behind me.
Definitely. I mean, how easy is it for people to actually bid on the auction?
Sure, it's a lot of different things that you can do. If you can be there live. We're opening to the public for the first day of the auction, which is on June 28th, which is a Wednesday. You just come up. We will be starting the auction at 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. So we'll be opening the doors at the museum at 7 o'clock in the morning so that you can check in and get registered for the auction there. We encourage you to join you because I'm sure there'll be some fun there and a lot of we'll have some food and drink and all that. But then on days 2 and throughout the auction, you can also bid online, and I'd say that's what majority of people will do. Go to propstore.com. Propstore, and you'll find the page there if you go to propstore.com, and you can register for the auction, and then you can either bid now in advance, and you can place your bid, and it won't bid you up until to your highest bid unless somebody else bids you up. Or you can wait till the day of the auction and you can be part of the live bidding that occurs. And in that case, what you see is you follow along with the auctioneer and you can place it. Basically, a button will pop up to say, do you want to place a bid or do you not? And so you just follow along when the final bids are being called. But you can also do absentee bidding. So you can just give us your absentee bids and we'll place them for you as if you were in the room. The advantage of that is in the case of a tie bid, the absentee bid actually will win in that regards because it was placed first. And then you can also do telephone bidding. So it's sort of like being there, but you just get one of the Propstore people like myself to bid on your behalf. And we'll ask you the questions. Do you want to bid? And we'll let you know what the bidding amount is. And you can tell us if you want to bid. And I think that's great, especially if you're traveling around throughout the day. We can call you and we'll call you 5 to 10 lots before your lot is coming up so that you don't have to necessarily track along if you're going to be busy that day.
I mean, there's nothing more exciting than when there's a piece and you've got loads of bids coming right, left and centre. Is there a piece that you're looking forward to seeing come under the hammer?
I'll tell you a few of the items that it just, again, blow my mind. We have the glove from Field of Dreams, the one that Kevin Costner uses at the end of the film to play catch with his father. I mean, saying that just pulls at my heart. And it's the one and only. The story behind that is, I guess, Kevin Costner, they originally gave him a glove and he felt like it was too new looking. So he went back to the prop master, and the prop master happened to have his own personal glove on the truck. And so he was like, will this work? And Kevin's like, perfect. And it became the glove. It was signed by Kevin later on, and it comes with a whole bunch of behind the scenes photos. I think the combination of that being a movie prop and also things that, at least here in the US, baseball is very beloved. And I think of any baseball movie, that and The Natural are the ones that come to mind. And we do have a natural bat as well in the auction. But I think that's one that could be very exciting to watch how the bidding goes on that.
Excellent. Well, June the 28th to the 30th of June, go on to propstore.com, get your bids in. Chuck, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I look forward to the auction. I cannot wait. And let's get the bidding going and have another successful auction, because it gets crazier and crazier as the years go on. It gets bigger and better.
It's fun. And hopefully people can get a treasure that they can treasure for years to come for their collection.